All right, everybody, welcome. It is December 14th, 2020, Monday. Wow, what a day. What a day. What a time to be alive, huh, Andy? You're muted. It's just like a Zoom. There you go. You're muted now.
I didn't mute myself. I was thinking on the way over to the studio today, it's like, what a wonderful reason to get up and shave and shower this show is. And manage to be here by 4 p.m.
It's a tight ship you have, having to get up that early and to get there. We have a great show in store for you. Big fans of Mall of America. I've known them for several years. Great people. Obviously, I work for Nickelodeon and have helped create attractions with Chris and Jill, who's on the show today, which is super excited about. Today we're going to go all about Santa Claus and going virtual. So stay tuned for that in just a few moments. But Andy, how's your week going? How are things out in your world?
It's warm and dusty outside. It's a crisp December dusty afternoon. We've had a lot of winds here in Burbank today, and it's nice. And it's like 75 degrees. That's very nice, actually.
Yeah, we had winter last week here in Orlando. It went to, it was like 48 degrees, 65, but now we're back to a 75 degree temperate climate.
Well, what's funny is that like our seasons are shifted too. It's like it doesn't get really cold until like January and February, just like it doesn't get really hot until August and September.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I want to just tease a little bit. This is our last show for the year. We're going off air. We're giving everybody 2 weeks time off from the show, and are going to be hitting the ground running on Monday, January 4th. Mm-hmm. For one night only, we are doing the show a little bit later. We're going to be doing it at 9:00 Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Andy, you want to talk about the show a little bit of what we're doing, which is going to be a lot of fun?
Well, yeah, we're going to have kind of a cocktail hour, year-end wrap-up, favorite moments from 2020. We're asking everybody to dig deep and find something nice to say about this year.
Yeah, so we're excited. We have Dave Cobb and Cynthia Sharp that are coming on board. Obviously, friends of the shows, friends of the networks. Cynthia has her own show. And of course, we got all sorts of other fun things in the works for the network. And
yeah, I think it's gonna be really nice. It's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun, yeah. And the other news. So let's go ahead. There's some news out there in the world. We know that the COVID vaccine Pfizer was approved. I did go ahead and do the little thing you do on New York Times and discover that I'm like, out of all the Americans, I'll probably get it in 5 years. But hopefully, it's like I'm on the complete bottom of the list. Yeah, not essential in any way, not a frontline worker, not basically just I'll be hoping to get it, at some point in my life.
Yeah, we're just gonna get sugar cubes and told it's the vaccine. It's just like good luck.
Yeah, no.
So
so we are happy to talk today. So this show is going to touch a little bit on COVID, actually. So normally we don't even talk about COVID-19. We all know it sucks and it's terrible and it's affected our industry. But our first ever owner operators are on here from the Mall of America. So we're going to talk all about their COVID experiences as much as we want to dive into that, and of course talk about how we had to flip things around for Christmas, their Santa experience. So why don't we go ahead and bring them on? Unless you have anything else, Andy, you want to touch on?
Nope. I think that's a great idea. Let's bring them on.
All right. Welcome.
Hear more about this.
We got. All right. Hey, there we go. And did we lose Gary? Is Gary somewhere here?
Gary's stuck in the green room. The snacks are too good. He won't leave.
There we go. I got him. Welcome to the show, everybody. Well, we're really happy to have you all here to talk about the experience that came together. There we go. Welcome back. So to get things started, why don't we go around the room and just give yourself a little bit of an intro so our audience members get to know you a little bit. Why don't we go ahead and start with Jill?
Good evening, everybody. Jill Renslow. I'm the Executive Vice President at Mall of America and thrilled to be here for the conversation as it has been an interesting year of a lot of openings and closures, and we've all been faced with new challenges, but I think the key is about being flexible and letting innovation lead with trying new things and seeing what's going to stick and what we might be able to bring into future years. So we're excited to share what we've been up to, and especially with the holiday season.
That's great. Well, welcome to the show. We're happy to have you on here. Let's go ahead and go to Chris next, also from Mall of America. Hey, Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris Grap. I'm the lead storyteller and experience designer with Mall of America. I've been working with Jill for 8 years when she so graciously created a position at Mall of America for me. And we have had many interesting challenges over the year, but I am very excited to be here with her today talking about our solution for Santa that turned into a pivot on a different solution for Santa, but it's been really fun and exciting. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome to the show. And then, of course, we have Gary live via satellite. We're all satellite.
All right. I'm Gary Wichansky, and I am the owner and head of creative at Hotopp Associates. We're an experienced design firm that does all kinds of wacky stuff, including a lot of Christmas. And I had the good fortune to meet up with Chris and Jill, and that's why we're here today to kind of talk about what we did together.
Well, that's great. Well, welcome to the show. Why don't we kick things off? We have an international audience. Some people may not even know what the Mall of America is. Jill or Chris, do you want to set up the video we have about fun facts about the Mall of America, and we can get things started?
Sure. So, Patrick, I hope more people know about Mall of America, but just in case they don't, we are located in Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul in Bloomington, and have been around for just over 28 years. We're over 5.5 million square feet. So not only are we an awesome destination for shopping with over 500 places to shop, we also have over a dozen attractions, fantastic restaurants, over 60 different options. Plus, we have 2 connected hotels. So we are at the intersection of retail, dining, entertainment, hospitality, and tourism, all components that got hit hard this year, but really an awesome destination for families to enjoy. And we truly have about 40 million visitors a year, and 40% of that is tourists. So we welcome people from across the country and around the globe. So this is just a little highlight reel to give you some fun facts about our amazing destination in Minnesota.
All right, let's see it.
Oh man, a Keels and a Shake Shack. I'm in.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. And I think what's really remarkable is the temperature outside in Minneapolis on some days when when it's 70 degrees inside, which is a pretty great thing.
Yeah, another fun fact, we actually, here in Minnesota, it's crazy. We don't have any central heating inside of Mall of America. So it's just from the vestibules and the body heat that keeps it comfortable and 70 every single day. So it's another fun fact.
Wow. It's
No,
amazing.
So let's go. So thank you for setting up Mall of America, which is an absolutely fun destination. I've obviously been there several times. Um, Gary, why don't we go ahead and chat a little bit about Hotopp and kind of talk about your journey a little bit, and then we'll kind of mend the two together. The beautiful collaboration that came.
Sure. So we are a experiential design firm. We were started by a man named Michael Hotopp, and it was largely started around kind of corporate events and live televised events and things like that. And that was the bread and butter for 20 or 30 years. But Michael really loved Christmas, so like he was always looking for projects that were Christmas related, and I think that had the good fortune in the 90s to kind of become responsible for the care and feeding of the the Radio City Hall Rockettes show. So like that kind of gave him a Christmas pedigree that he was able to parlay into, a lot of other Christmas attractions. So, it's kind of been just what we've done for a very long time. In addition to, an eclectic mix of other things, there's always been like this thread of, what is Hotopp working on for Christmas? So it's kind of a weird fusion of being an architecture firm slash experiential designer, like you guys all know, with this just constant Christmas itch that for some reason we haven't been able to scratch.
Got it. So then that leads us into the Candy Institute. So maybe we can kind of thumb through the history of that.
Sure. Let's see what you got here. So the Candy Cane Institute started kind of as an idea we had. Historically, we've kind of gotten work like a lot of other design firms by being hired for design services. But really, when the pandemic hit and everything got quiet, we sort of took a step back and said, well, what are we good at? What have we been doing for a long time? And what can we create? And I had this itch for a long time about this thing called the Candy Cane Institute. So we put that together. And I think, originally we were looking for, a partner that could produce this. So, I mean, I can walk through. This was the original concept that we created back in June. It started with kind of the idea of going into a anchor store or large space in a mall and really picking up on what we had learned. One of the major Christmas things we've done also for a long time has been the ice show at Gaylord, and which the Gaylord Convention Centers have a ice attraction that's in here. If you flip through this will show you some of the things I'm talking about. I can talk about it real fast. This is just back in Radio City, those days back in the day, and some Gaylord decor. And then if you keep going through there, just kind of standard theme park SeaWorld stuff, helping them with Christmas and that stuff there. And then we've done a fair amount of kind of bringing Western narrative to Chinese lantern shows for Christmas. So there's a couple of those, and those have always been kind of big, non-IP shows. But this is like, Christmas Carol and 12 Days of Christmas. But like I said, for a long time, for 20 years, we've been doing these ice attractions for Gaylord. And their model, because they have multiple properties and multiple relationships with IPs, is to do ice every year, but to rotate through, kind of different brands across their properties. So over 20 years, we've done a dozen different IPs. We've rotated them in 5 cities, and every year at Christmas for 5 weeks, they do this thing that has become a family tradition in the cities where they have ice venues. So that's where we started as a point of departure for the Candy Cane Institute, was what could we bring to a retail space that would do the same thing, that would kind of be like an envelope for Christmas every year, where every year we could have this brand that shows up, but could bring audience and new content, so we could get families and people to come back over and over. So Stay Home and Do Nothing, that was what was going on back in June in the entertainment and attraction industry. And then that's when we created this Candy Cane Institute deck that I can walk you through now. And we can do that pretty quick and just to talk about where it was. So the big idea of the Candy Cane Institute was to create a Christmas attraction that felt natural in a mall setting. So, this was COVID had started. We knew COVID was around and we were going to have to do something that was friendly. We really weren't thinking about Santa Claus, to be honest. It was really just about a fun experience, and again, kind of an envelope. So we had this backstory, this idea that, like back in the 70s, the elves, like when kind of data science started to become big in marketing firms, like at the end of Mad Men, when everybody kind of gets fired because they bring in an analytical machine that can figure out, crunch the numbers. We had this idea that, like, well, what if that happened in the North Pole, and all these elves were saying, like, oh, we can make Christmas better, through the analysis of data. So it's a kind of a dorky idea. But we generated a kind of concept, and it was meant to be, held in a retail environment in either an anchor store, or we were thinking 20 to 60,000 square feet. And the idea was you would come in, there'd be a welcome center. They would tell you all about, the history of the Candy Cane Institute. But that was really just kind of a transition to get you into more traditional types of, entertainment attractions. So we had a dome theater and a toy lab where you could go and, do different activities. We had some Christmas themed escape rooms. So it was kind of like this envelope for this thing was the idea. And, we spent the summer kind of looking for a partner in the retail space and mall ownership that would come. And we weren't looking to, we didn't come in and do it as a product, like as a tenant. We really wanted to find someone that would follow the model where it would be their brand, but we would grow it, as partners with them to fit the business model or the available spaces that they had in their retail center. So that was the idea. And what we found was that's really difficult when it comes to looking at the people that own and operate retail centers and malls. People were willing to make a tenant deal with us, but nobody really wanted to own the Candy Cane Institute and really develop that as a brand. And, I think that's not really often the model. In most cases, the mall ownership's looking for attraction. So, and that was kind of, we were sort of had given up. We had been out there talking about all the different ways we could do this. And I had a number of meetings over the summer, and it was through a mutual friend that I think this got passed along to Chris, and he saw it, and we started talking, and it turned out that what we had set out to do was a bit ambitious for the timeline we were on and the space they had available. But, the seed was there for something I think that he was as excited about as I was. And then we started trying to figure out, okay, what does this look like for you guys?
Yeah, and really a wake-up call for me. I have to do a better job, because if you were pitching people in June and we didn't start talking until September, like, what happened? Where did those ships pass in the night? But yeah, it's just, it was crazy to me, and it really was fortuitous, talking to a mutual friend, and I was kind of, lamenting the woes of trying to ideate what Santa was going to be this year, and Matt Kent, and he said, I think you should talk to my friend Gary. So Gary and I didn't have our first conversation. I actually looked back at the meeting. It was September 11th, Friday, September 11th. And then Jill and I had our first conversation the following Monday, and then we all talked together for the first time on September 16th. And that's really when we started to go, okay, what can this look like, and how can this work in the time and the space and all the challenges that we have?
So, I mean, you must be, we all went into lockdown in March, and I think a lot of us were like, couple months, we'll be back to normal. Boy, now we've launched the whole network. No, boy, were we wrong. What were, to Jill and Chris, what are some of your normal offerings that you have? And I think we have a video too we can play, but like, what was that whole or you want to go through the video?
I think, start with there, and then we could talk through it. That'd be great.
Okay, let's do it.
We've seen that video so many times, but you know what? Those smiles motivate us every day to try to create the magic. And that's what was, that's what was key. And when we looked at the holiday season and being a destination that families come to every single year to not only see Santa, but enjoy our awesome decorations and our holiday music and just those special traditions, we were motivated to create something this year, knowing that it was going to be different. So that video is obviously pre 2020. But Chris scoured the globe before we met Gary and team from Hotopp to just figure out how are we going to still deliver Santa. And so kudos to Chris. He never gave up and really was able to find a diamond in the rough for us to be able to create this amazing experience, not only for people in Minnesota, but truly with what we created, we connected with people across the country. And that's also what, as we had to pivot, and we'll go through more of the story of the in-person versus what we ended up with, it was the fact that, we can now create these experiences that can touch more people than we would have ever been able to connect with. And that has really unlocked the opportunities as, there's silver linings with everything that's happened this year. And I think that's one of our biggest takeaways with being an experience destination is now we're able to take the ideas that we have in person and now put them on platforms to connect with so many more people, which is an exciting and awesome opportunity.
I will just say, before we dive into the meat of the whole thing, that was like a whole other level of Santa. A parade, a band, a marching band. Like this seems like it is something pivotal that happens at Mall of America every year. It feels like it's a lot bigger than what maybe people were expecting.
It is. It's huge. The holidays are huge for us, and that's only one piece of what we do. I mean, the building, to me, it never looks better. And as Jill mentioned, it's 5.5 million square feet, and really no corner is untouched with celebration, decoration, light shows, and it's magical. And seeing that video again, I shake my head and say, Santa's arrival is a big deal. Having that Santa component is a huge deal. So when Jill talks about, we didn't give up. There were so many conversations about how we were going to treat this, but it was looking grim. It was looking rough for a while. So I am very thankful that we found Gary. Okay, yeah, we could talk about this. And it was interesting at the beginning of the show, Patrick, you mentioned that you don't talk about COVID really. And I agree. That was something that was important for us too, is that we didn't want COVID to be front and center with these visits with Santa for our guests. And so much of what I had seen or I had been pitched, and people are trying, but it was very dystopian to me. Santa's wearing a, terrible welder's mask and he's behind plexi and he's fist bumping you, or he's trapped somewhere and can't get to you. So inherently, one of the things that I liked about the Candy Cane Institute pitch was the elves are doing experiments. So, and one of the things that Gary had shown, this rendering of the toy lab, we really kind of latched onto. And I love the idea that the elves are wearing masks and protective gear because of the experiments. We don't want to mess with the experiments. They're collecting this data. It's very serious. So that was a great foot in the door to having fun without putting the weight of the world on everybody when they came to visit.
Yeah, and I think too, there was a handful of things, like Chris said, this toy lab, which for us had been sort of a secondary or tertiary experience that was part of it. Like it was, we went through it and we looked at the space was available. We started to realize that actually I have been really kind of thinking about all these activities and what are people going to do when they get inside. And this gave us the opportunity to just focus on the storytelling, and make the fun of that lab and the idea that these elves are trying to make Christmas better, and, how ridiculous it was, became really the bulk of the experience. And then there were these, the idea was you were going to go back into a survey, which again felt normal in a mall, in this room. But, we had thought originally that like, oh, well, most retail centers, like you just saw, already have their Santa Claus experience dialed in. So we were thinking that maybe Santa wouldn't really be a part of it. And then, by the time it was September and we realized what was going on in the world and that no one's going to be able to sit on Santa's lap, then it was only after sort of Chris and I started talking that it was like, oh, okay. So if we're already going into this survey room, then going into this other space where now you're going to have a Zoom call with Santa, because that was originally the idea of Candy Cane Institute at the Mall of America, was you would go spend time in the lab, visit with the elves, learn about the experiments, and get to kind of interact, and then go to this small survey room with just your family, so at a very tight throughput, bring one family at a time into a big space. There was the dystopian future
Yeah.
we were dealing with.
Just to interject here, part of it was, I put in the headlines from Dr. Fauci because Santa's COVID immune. Like that is known. He made that very clear. And I think all these approaches that people had were still acknowledging COVID. And it's like, we've got to take that out of it. And when you think about all these things from pop culture, anytime people are separated between glass, it's not happy. They're not having fun. So how do we get beyond that? And what Gary is alluding to here, and when we first talked, was the research goes awry. Well, then you've got to talk to management. You've got to talk to the manager. You've got to talk to the head elf. And again, credit to Gary and his team. Jill and I and the rest of the team had talked. We had some things that we thought were important and could they fit. And they weren't so precious about the ideas that they brought forward that they weren't willing to work with us. And I think that's something that we really appreciated. And it was fun for us to be able to work together and collaborate and make this experience work for everybody. Jill, I don't know if you want to talk about that too, but how important that piece of it was.
Well, I was just chuckling because I remember one of our first phone calls with Gary, and when we got to the point where we were talking about the timeline, I knew these guys were going to be an amazing partner because they were going to do everything possible to make it happen. And I mean, we were under, as we talked about, and we made this decision in September, and we had to get things in production in just a couple of weeks. It was crazy how quickly we moved. But I knew our team internally, we are very agile and move quickly. But as soon as you layer in a partner and have timelines and budgets and things that you have to figure out, usually it adds weeks to the schedule. And these guys made the impossible possible. And it was just awesome to work with them and to collaborate with our creative teams. And what was great is we had a resource for the elves, because we own and operate Nickelodeon Universe, as Patrick, so we had an entertainment team that was currently not working in Nick Universe because we couldn't do the interaction with the characters and the entertainment. And so we had this awesome resource. We had used it in previous years for the holiday season, and to be able to bring them on board and train them quickly with the narrative that Hotopp created with the script. It just, everything fell into place, and it was a perfect match working together.
Was there any part of you, Jill, that's like, what's Chris doing these? Like, what is he up to? Some sort of harebrained scheme?
I'm always thinking that. You know what? I love it because he always comes up with magical ideas, and I have a lot of trust in Chris. He's an amazing creative mind that really motivates our team and inspires them and really brings the magic to Mall of America.
Well, and I kind of thought we might be in a little bit of trouble. I was almost thinking somebody else should have brought the idea forward, because Gary and I seem to think so similar.
We have the same sense of humor, right?
They're just going to think that I'm passing this along, like, check this out. But no, the sensibilities really did line up, and the humor and the approach was unique to anything that I had seen this year. And again, just kind of the sleeves up and let's do this attitude was really refreshing, and it was a fantastic partnership. And it is a fantastic partnership. It continues to be so. I mean, I had to very quickly text these fellas the other day with a malfunctioning prop that they were able to help me remedy. So it continues to be so, and we look forward to evolving this in future years.
Well, I always say I like putting on a show in a barn. It's my theater roots, where we're just like, all right, we got 6 weeks and we got to figure this out. Like, let's do it. It's nice to work on grown-up projects where you don't have to do that all the time, but every now and again, when it's Christmas and you're kind of get to have all that positive mojo that Jill was talking about like, hey, we got to put on a show, like you got to have something for Christmas. It does fire people up, and that, and while we're having that love fest, I think part of the thing that I think makes these things happen is trust, right? So we didn't get bogged down with the review because they trusted us to kind of have space and say, well, we're going to have to go with it. Like, you guys, we seem to be on the same page. And I think there was a thought that if that was micromanaged, that we wouldn't have made it. So, I think it was a two-way street to kind of let us run. And, that did take a lot of trust because we haven't worked together before, but I think it was clear that we were having a good time. So that's usually half the battle.
That's right. And I would add that the main litmus test for our team is that if internally we are super excited about an idea, we know that it has stickiness factor with our guests. When we're forcing something through, or because it's a certain season with the retail cycle and we've got to do this now, you can tell when things are forced, and when the team isn't motivated, it just kind of goes flat. But this idea sparked immediately with our team, and everybody was super excited about the potential. And Chris nailed it. Like, this is just the beginning. We have so many ideas and how we're going to build on the Santa experience with Candy Cane Institute that we're super excited about future years as well.
So why don't we walk through this experience a little bit of what we saw the preliminary concepts and the ideas thrown out, but why don't we kind of step through maybe what it was originally intended to be, and then maybe what it happened to be, because I know there was a little bit of pivoting that happened along the way, right, Chris and Gary and Jill?
Sure. And I think the biggest way to do that, you might want to back this up and we can go through it pretty fast. But if you look at this is the ground plan of what we actually did. So you can see here. So I'll just describe where we started. So we started with this idea of an anchor store, all these big movements, a welcome set, a lobby, and then you go in and it's, kind of like a theme park model where there's a bunch of activities in the inside. And they were all big statements. And one of the things we had in there was kind of this interview room, which in this you can see in this render in the upper right-hand corner. But when we kind of had to boil it down to how are we going to lead people through a short immersive experience and end with an interaction with Santa, that's when this Christmas lab kind of became the meat of the project. And then we got to turn all our attention where originally the toy lab was a place where you were going to go in and your family would do a craft project and make a toy. So pretty standard for kind of Christmas festivals. Now it became all about storytelling on what these wacky kind of misguided elves are up to, and we got to really dig into spending like the kind of resources and time we did have, not so much on the environment, but on making those things fun and making them good points of departure for storytelling and interaction with characters. So if you go to the next page, we can just walk through what's in here. This was a render we did as part of this conversation, because again, Santa Claus was elsewhere in the original concept. So we put this in there to kind of, make sure that we were in agreement with Mall of America, like, yeah, this is where we're going to end up. And then if you go to the next slide, so this was, again, quickly kind of modeling the space that we had was about 8,000 square feet that had previously been a pop-up Mercedes store, I think was the last tenant in there. So we saw all these great pictures of this beautiful space, and then we realized that all that fit and finish was gone, and we had to just work with raw space. So this was us kind of mapping over what it would look like to enter that testing lab. And then as you go to the next slide, so this is starting to just kind of mass model those different experiences and lay out the stations where you would interact. And again, originally we were going to have, a dozen up to a few dozen, potentially people in this lab as kind of a pre-show or waiting area, pulsing through into the next rooms. I think ultimately we landed on a place because COVID, since even when we started talking, things were changing, and we got to the place where there was only going to be, I think, 18 guests at a time in this room. But even that was still going to cycle through, all day. So
that's a good point too. That's one of the things that kept evolving throughout this as well. As we're building this, the guidelines, we're getting guidance. Jill is working with me on a health and safety plan that we have to get kind of not permission, and it's not an approval, but essentially guidance based on the state's recommendations. So then we're writing this and we're doing this, and then we're going back to Gary and team going, that was great. Now, how about we do this?
Yeah.
How about we change this?
So we were working kind of back and forth in this kind of style. If you can go to the next one, we were just kind of developing, what these interactives were, and we were focusing on, what can we do in a short amount of time? We have to deal. We're not going to be able to fabricate a ton of stuff from scratch. So we're going to have to figure out how to use kind of off-the-shelf things to tell a new story. So that's, one of the tables was about the Christmas food analysis. The next page is a machine that automatically wraps your gifts for you that the elves could be developing. If you go to the next page, this is, I think, an evolution of the Christmas food analysis. We got into a stocking experiment, and then at the same time, we were trying to figure out fit and finish. How we were creating a graph style guide and new graphics. The idea of the Candy Cane Institute was that these elves came out with this idea in the 70s and nobody listened to them. We didn't really hit that this year, but there is like this subtext of like the moral to the story is about being a good listener. And I think with all the events, other things that are hard to tackle in a Christmas attraction of the year, just kind of the social justice movement of the year, we planted that seed that these guys were, saying for the longest time that the world has changed and we need to do things differently, and nobody was listening. And now in 2020, we've all kind of started listening to each other. We decided that this was not the year, I think, to kind of hit that one too hard, but like that in the back of our mind was a big part of it. So that's why you see all this kind of themed, relatively retro interior. And again, trying to come up with something that's different. It feels fresh for a space that everybody's seen so many times with the same kind of vocabulary. So,
I love the retro future design that lended it to. It's like those old computers and stuff. It's like kind of the spaceship Earth computer scene kind of.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. So, sorry, was somebody about to talk?
No, I was just going to tell you what this is, but you're going to.
Yeah, no, I guess so. It's like Santa Claus. The demographic for Santa Claus is families, right? So was there a balance you struck between going 70s retro while being, relatable to the children of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that was to root it in that, but not be slavish about it. So it's not like, oh, that's not period, we can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more about it being, I think, a point of departure. And, we, I think, kind of couching it in a style, but not, like these characters in this world didn't stop then. It's just kind of what where they're rooted and where they, we kind of thought of it as like rockabilly, where people like are paying homage to that more than anything else. And then, I think of adults and kids, I think that was probably, from our conversation, a lot of what Chris liked about it too, is that, like Bugs Bunny or Pixar or any good story, it's really it works on both levels, I think. And we were able to kind of hit this, we all have this exhaustion with our data being collected, now, and the internet is watching us. And the idea that these elves are now trying to do that too, but they're goofing it up and they're coming up with this wackadoodle stuff like, oh, we tried to crowdsource a better idea for a better Santa suit and look at this ridiculous stuff that they came up with. I think we're sort of poking fun at that. So, and I think if you're 6, it doesn't matter. It's just fun. And if you're, 76, I think you still get it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's one of the things that we all really grabbed onto and got excited about was there's a level of humor that was there for the parents that the kids wouldn't necessarily get, but the fact that they get to be in this space with these elves and going through all these experiments, that was just a home run. It was a very clever way to treat a cue.
Gotcha. So did you touch on this, Gary, the character, the crowdsourcing of this?
Well, the sort of that was the idea anyway. Like all the elves are doing two things, right? They're either collecting data or they're testing things that they've done with that data. That's sort of the defining principle of all the experiments. So like most of the scripting and what the elves are doing now in this year, and we'll talk about it in a second, I'm sure, is a switch to virtual, but it was going to be the real idea anyway, was really all this interactive with kids, which is now about asking them questions, now about inquiry and about, giving these characters something to do besides say, are you a good little boy or a bad little boy? But really, like, we just opened up the world of like patter to all these actors to really go through and, ask a ton of questions. So that's the idea behind that.
Cool. What's up next?
So we just have some kind of process work. So, back to this kind of high speed attack we talked about. So we our studio here in Seattle, we have a tiny little fab shop where we do like kind of first articles and mock-ups and thought experiments and such. But because we only had a couple of weeks, we sort of did design build where, rather than draw it to the nines and then go out to a fabricator, we didn't have time for that. So we just bootstrapped it, and mostly our design staff built everything. So we got 2 for 1. So, we came up with, it was kind of a modular, scenic system that we came up with so we could CNC cut and load in this quick screening. If you just step through, this is just an assortment of shots, both of the kind of fabrication of all these experiments, and then now, out in the space loading in, or where the actual Candy Cane Institute here, so you can see them set up in the environment. There's the ugly Christmas sweater machine and the Rap-O-Matic. And there's the food science table with all sorts of experiments on it. Milk and cookies in one container. There's the Santa suit in real life as completed. And then that's the naughty or nice machine. So at the end of everybody's tour, they get scanned. And the idea is to use predictive analytics to determine whether you're naughty or nice. So that we decided that Santa sees you when you're sleeping and he sees you when you're awake. And that's kind of creepy. So this would prevent him having to look at you when you're sleeping. Was that he could scan you and decide if you're naughty or nice. It's got a pretty good hit rate.
And we were really excited. Midway through, they were able to take us through their shop and kind of show us everything that they had been working on. And to see the level of detail that went into it was really exciting. And I think kind of re-energized our group around it. And so when Hotopp got on site and our construction team had done what they were going to do to the space, and they started putting it together, seeing all the details, like that naughty or nice machine has names of Minnesota cities in there with, you can try harder, Mendota Heights, you're a little naughty. So there's all these things that are meant to be scrutinized up close. And that was November 17th. And then November 18th, we got new orders from our governor that changed the landscape of what our experience is going to be. Obviously many in the state, but one of them was no indoor entertainment. And Jill, if I remember correctly, it was actually no in-person Santa experiences.
That is correct. We had with the new communication that came through the governor, pretty much put everything on its side for all of our holiday plans. So we were literally a week away from launching the holiday, even though decor had already been going up as of November 1st. And we got the devastating news that we couldn't open any of our attractions. Our restaurants went to takeout only and no indoor entertainment. So all of our holiday music, our Festival of Trees, our Black Friday initiatives, all of that went to the wayside. So at that point, we came to a screeching halt and had to cancel a handful of things. But we said, we are not canceling Candy Cane Institute. We flipped upside down to get this done. So we quickly convened. Actually, Gary was on site that week as we were doing the install. And it was just, we quickly sat down and figured out, okay, how are we going to turn this now to an in-person experience over to a virtual experience so we can still bring this magic to families, because we were not going to allow the state to cancel that on us. And so we worked feverishly, and the team was dedicated, and literally within a week flipped it over to a virtual experience and put the appointments online and made it happen. It was kudos to our entire team for making it possible.
So there was about 16 hours where I knew something was going to happen, and I couldn't make eye contact with Gary because I was of the mind that this was probably going away entirely. And so when he and Hector are down there working and they're matching bibs and, they're getting stuff done, I was like, all right, this is going to change pretty much entirely. But again, that's the strength of the idea, the fact that the team, Jill, gave us such support. We're going to find a way to do this. We didn't know how we were going to do it, but we were going to figure it out. And again, credit to Gary and the rest of his team for, again, not being so precious about it. They were just like, okay, well, we could start moving this around here. And it was just, here we go. Let's figure it out. Put on the show in the barn, as he said before. But you didn't miss a beat, Gary. I don't know if you were hiding it well or if you were just anticipating. Or
I think that's show business, right? I think you just got to go with it, and like the point is not for it to be perfect. The point is for it to live, and get out there and for people to see it. And I think, you did seem really weird for those 16 hours. We were, we were like, what's going on with Chris? And I got an ominous text like, can you come down here? I need to talk to you about something. And I was like, oh, and then that was when we were hearing that everything was shutting down in the world, there too. And we were like, oh, here it goes. But we were very excited about just to saying, the commitment to the idea and to doing something to say, no, we're going to find a way to put this online, and it's going to take us a couple of days, and it's not going to open on the day we said, but it's going to exist, and we're going to get through it, and so if that's the attitude, of course, we did not feel like us being having a bad attitude about it would have made any sense.
Not even bad attitude.
Go ahead,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
We were going to open on Black Friday. So we got the notification on the 20th that things had to shut down. We were going to open on Black Friday, and we only had to postpone it till December 1st. And that's when we opened Candy Cane Institute, or the schedule. And so we really only had to postpone a few days. And, it was fantastic that Chris has the background of being in film production, because as soon as we walked through this, he immediately flipped the switch, where he's like, we're turning Candy Cane Institute into a production studio, because we're going to now have to create the system where the elves can film each other and connect with families. On the same tone, we had our IT team quickly looking at partners that could help us from a technology perspective. We quickly partnered with Cisco, because we already had the technology in place for the Zoom Santa. So we were able to still keep a lot of those components in place, but then to layer it in with how we were going to schedule the bookings with the families and how we were going to deliver that experience. We have a lot of ideas to expand on that in the future, but I think we did a pretty awesome job getting it launched in the time that we did.
That's incredible. I mean, I can commiserate with the, working on a whole thing and then having it pulled out from under you like that. So I was working on a Lagoon show all summer for Halloween Horror Nights, and the day we finished, it was they announced that they were canceling the event. Mm-hmm. So it was just such a bummer. But I'm curious, how did you pivot from a marketing standpoint then? Once you decided, like, okay, this is going to be a virtual thing, how did you get the word out that it's like, don't come, but do this instead?
That is a very interesting question. So with the holidays, we're very strategic in our announcements, and we literally start making announcements early in November, and each week we release more information about what we're going to do. So we actually were holding on Candy Cane Institute until that weekend before Black Friday. So as we got the announcement that we had to make the change, we were able to quick pause on the announcement so that we could reconvene. So we didn't have mixed messages out there. So once we did make the announcement, it was clean out as far as communication to the guests that it was only a virtual experience. And we worked with our social team and our paid media team. And honestly, we didn't do a lot of paid out of the gate, because we wanted to make sure if it was going to take off, that we had plenty of spots for it to be open. But watch the bookings, and then we did a little paid with it. But I feel like the best opportunity was through our media partners here locally, because Chris did a ton of on-air interviews to help walk people through the experience and help understand and educate them. I feel like this whole year has been about education more than anything, because things change all the time. So it's about just making sure we can level set expectations with the guests. But Chris had that opportunity to talk with a lot of media personalities and help tell the story.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that sets us apart is our teams. Jill mentioned our IT team having to figure out a solution for this. Everybody is the top of their field. They're experts in their field. And the fact that our in-house PR team is able to generate this type of interest as well, just through the relationships and connections that they have. You saw some of the things I grabbed there to share. The time was right. People wanted a positive holiday story as well, given the weight of everything that was happening. And people have been very excited about it and interested in talking to us and seeing how things work and doing demos and going through it. So it's been a busy couple of weeks, but the media response has been fantastic. The industry interest has been fantastic. And I think just everybody's hard work to make this thing happen really shines through.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how fortunate that you hadn't already started the marketing. I was just like, wow, that's at least you had that.
Yes, timing was in our favor of how we strategically looked at launching some of the communication. But you know what? I feel like consumers are a little bit more forgiving this year with the changes that are taking place, and are just appreciative that there's opportunities for them to connect with traditions and new ways. But you know, being able to be able to share some of the videos and photos that we had with some of our coworkers as we were testing this out, we knew we had something special because just those, you guys saw it in the video too with the Santa arrival, those smiles and the laughter and those just that emotional connection just motivates us. And it was being able to have that experience when we were testing it out. We knew we had something. So we're excited to continue to roll that out through Christmas Eve this year. And then we're going to be starting to, we've got a great head start on 2021 already. We're excited to build on that as we look. Who knows? Maybe there's Christmas in July at this point. We'll redo and then do it again in December.
Why not? No, I mean, the Christmas release has been defunded. Do whatever you want.
Hey man, you got to collect that all year if you want Christmas to be, to go off without a hitch in December.
Yeah. So what? So yeah. So let's. What is it? What is it now? What did it become?
It is an all virtual online experience. So guests are doing it at home from their computer, from their devices. This is actually this is not a stage photo. This is a photo of the children of one of our team members in IT, and that is her real expression when Santa popped on. And as Jill had talked about, so much of the feedback that we're getting is kids feel like they're talking to a celebrity. Kids feel like it's truly for them, and it really is. It's such a interesting story that each guest get to have. Some of the feedback we've had actually was, we don't get to see everything in the lab. Well, that's by design. We're hoping that people want to come back and do it again. So like a beautiful snowflake, no visit is the same. So the elves will start the call with the guest. The guest goes to the website, chooses a time that's available. They get emailed a link, and then they'll start the time. So the elf is there to kind of be, the host to get them into Candy Cane Institute and show them a few of the experiments that they're working on. And we have enough elves that they're at different stations and they're doing things in the background, and it really makes the experience feel like it's very full. They're very busy, and they get to know the children's personalities, and they can tailor the visit to the guest. So if they're a little disinterested in one thing, they can move right on to the next. And we're finding that guests are wanting to spend more time with the elves. And in fact, to the chagrin of some of our, Santa, the kids are remembering, oh, we met Ginger and we met Sprinkles, and they're very excited about that. But it's been a lot of fun. So once the guest has been in the lab area for about 6 to 8 minutes, then Santa pops onto the line as well. So then Santa's there. He's kind of checking on the elves, and the elves let Santa talk to the guests, and you talk with them now, and we'll continue on the experiment here. And that's what puts the guest in the room with Santa, and that's where they complete their call, because you got to end with the big guy.
That's really cool. Is Santa? I saw that sort of fairly elaborate set that he was in. Is it an actual set he's in, or is it a green screen situation?
No, that's an actual set. And Jill and I have talked about this too. I much prefer a practical set when we can do that. I think even the best green screen experiences I've seen for things like this just don't read correctly. So it was important for us, and Gary and his team really designed some fantastic pieces for us, and then we incorporated a lot of our existing pieces as well. But that wasn't the original room Santa was going to be in. That's where the guests were going to be at the end, and they were going to be seeing Santa from a different set. But the way that it worked out, having to pivot, Santa ended up in a much more elaborate area. And I think, again, all the better for it. Just wasn't what anybody intended.
And so all is now where the Candy Cane Institute was going to be. And so you're just like broadcasting live from this set in the mall that you built that no one will actually get to see in person.
It's the North Pole, friend. I'm sorry, it's
Yeah,
not
that's
at
right.
Mall of
That's
America.
right.
We
And
don't-
instead of being the first field office in the history of the Candy Cane Institute, it is now the beta test at the North Pole, being prepared for the first field office in the future. So, so we had all the rooms there, and we had this whole 7,000 square feet of show set. So, I think the fun part, I think part of it, because there are other online Santa experiences, but I think this really has this whole environment and this whole story, and it's mobile, and with the multiple elves, you're moving around. And I had said a while ago that I think a real target for me in creating this was the kids that are on the bubble. They're just kind of like they kind of have a feeling that something's not right, and they're dubious, and they're looking for clues that maybe there's something going on here that isn't entirely the way it's been represented with Santa Claus. And I love that now you get kind of brought to this place and you say, oh, wow, well, they have this whole institution up there and all these offices and this laboratory. So I think it extra, buys you a couple of extra innings if you're a parent with kids that are giving you a hard time. And you go, no, look. And we went to extra lengths. Like, we created a website that's just the Candy Cane Institute's website that has nothing to do with anything else. So that if you really do dig into it and try to follow that mythology, that it's backed up with something that makes it feel real, to give parents extra tools to kind of keep the magic going.
I agree, Gary. I think that we've talked internally too, that it's those kids that are on the edge. It's a really unique experience that helps maybe buy a couple more years. But what's also been important is, as we've learned from the audience, when you have the younger kids, the in-depth script that was written might go over their heads a little bit. And so even just the modification of that, adjusting to the age range of the audience that they're talking with, has been a really interesting learning as well. And so all these pieces will help us even customize it more for the future. But everybody's just, on a different page, and it's great to be able to be live with these families because it's personal, it's customizable, and can really just ring true to the families that are engaging with each appointment that is set. So the team's been having a lot of fun, and it's just a crazy year, and we're excited to be able to do magic for the holidays.
Yeah, we anticipated a certain type of engagement in the way that Hotopp had designed it too. The families are going through together. So the grown-ups are there to be the butt of some of these jokes too, especially with the naughty or nice machine. But we learned very quickly, once it moved to online only, the kids are in front of the screen and the parents are largely just prompting them from behind and taking pictures of the experience or filming it themselves. So we did lose a little bit of that interactivity we thought would be there, but we're able to pivot pretty quick.
Oh, that's really cool, man. After you're done with the show, I'm gonna probably go straight to it. I'm so curious to see what it's like.
We would love to have you, and even come in person, hopefully, once everything reopens.
I'd love to. I remember when the mall opened, and it was a big, huge thing. It was all over the news, everywhere across the country, and it was the biggest mall in the world. And it was always one of those things that I've always wanted to see in person.
I mean, it's still kind of a big, huge, awesome thing. I don't know if you saw all that media there. No big deal.
So it's we kind of are looking at on the horizon. COVID-19 is a bit unpredictable, and we know that the government's doing their best they can, and you're obviously doing your best as you can to operate a business. This looked like it was definitely something that you would want to build on every single year. Do you foresee this coming back next year, bigger and better, and probably in the way it originally was intended? What are you all thinking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this was our chance to reinvent Santa, and I think COVID's given us all the excuse to do things differently. And some of the things that we're learning are things that we're going to build on for the future. I think just in all of this year, we have accelerated innovation, and not just from a technology standpoint, but just change and trying new things, working with partners that we haven't before. And it's really just connecting us with guests in different ways, really looking at services and how we're building that relationship with our guests before they arrive, and for those that are ready to come back, how we can engage with them in person. But we're learning that this virtual world is really important for us to be in, to just put an exclamation point behind the in-person experience. And so we can really create this connection in a different way. So we've learned a lot this year, and we're going to apply a lot of that as we plan for 2021 and beyond. But, we're going to take it in pieces and be flexible and react to what we need to with all the changes and the direction that we're given. But our ultimate priority is safety, and we will always make sure that we have that safe environment for our guests, whether it's shopping or dining or playing. It's really important, and we want to make sure our guests trust us so that they can come back and play with us in person in the future.
Yeah,
Well,
I really think we've only just begun with this. And, Jill mentioned it before, seeing the smiles on guest faces. And we've talked about it before. I talked to Paul Williams, the musician, about what his music meant to me at one point, and he said, that's a heart payment. That's what I call that, hearing what that means to you. And so I have taken that term and I use it, and really that is such a unique piece for us at Mall of America. So many of the things we create, we get to walk out there and see how guests engage with them, and we get that heart payment from creating moments for people. And so selfishly, I really want to get people into the Candy Cane Institute so all of that work can be seen up close and enjoyed the way that it was intended. But at the same time, I'm so blown away by how positive the response has been when we really only had about 4 days to kind of redesign and rebuild what it was going to be.
Wow.
But I'm excited for 2021.
Well, it sounds like this is all just a match made in maybe not heaven, but the North Pole. You guys we're all able to process this and come up with solutions and work together and keep up the quality of the experience that you had so meticulously created. And it's man, my hat's off to you. It's incredible what you've been able to do.
Yeah, so this is really quite a fun experience, and I look forward to experiencing as well. I will just say that this is our last show before we break for the holidays, and I'd love it if I'd like to ask a little silly question, but are you on the naughty or nice list? And what do you want for Christmas if you celebrate Christmas? I'd love to hear that. We'll start with Gary. Are you on the naughty or nice list?
Well, I'm definitely on the nice list. I mean, I created the machine that determines that, so I think I'm fair to say that I'm on the nice list. I think, and I don't know. I mean, I think what do I want for Christmas? And really, it's a cliched thing to say. I don't want anything. I really am not. I don't care. I like the fun. I want my family to stay engaged, and keep having fun. And I am on the other side of the curve of people that have kids that are kind of in on Christmas at this point in Santa Claus. And what's great for me is that it's actually better than before in my house. So, all I want for Christmas is that to keep being true.
That's great. Love that. Chris, over to you. Naughty or nice? And what do you want for Christmas?
Depends on who you ask. I think I would say firmly on the nice list for helping pull this thing to the finish line at the very least. Nice by default. Not to echo Gary, but he's absolutely right. This year, more important than ever, I just am enjoying those little moments and recognizing those little things that we have, especially with our family. And the magic of the season is alive in our house, and I am so happy to be able to celebrate that with my family. And I am thankful to have a team that didn't say no to this and helped get us to where we are, because it is bringing so much joy to so many people. And that is the honest truth.
That's great. Jill, over to you. Naughty or nice?
You leave it to the last, and they took all the answers already. Definitely the nice list. I'm done with my Christmas shopping, so to my family, they are going to be very happy this Christmas. But it's just been a really interesting year, and to keep our chins up and keep moving forward has been a gift on its own. Just to be able to work with an awesome team and come home to an amazing family. So really, just looking for some relaxation. It has been crazy, and we haven't had a lot of downtime to just relax. And so looking forward to that. And that would be the biggest gift of all, just to spend time with family and relax and be safe and healthy.
That's great. Over to Rachel. Naughty or nice list?
Every time. You always surprise me. Yeah, I think probably Well, I don't know if I'm nice so much as I tried to be nicer than I was before this year. So that don't know if that's an option for me to choose. In terms of what I want for Christmas, I think it's funny. My mom asked me this and was like, "Please hurry and tell me this before shipping won't be able to get anything done." I really do think it's spending more time with my folks and my dog, who I haven't. I've been doing a lot of other stuff this past few weeks, but spending more time with them, just because my family is very smart alecky, and it's just enjoyable to be able to love my parents not only as my parents but also as like my friends, which sounds so corny, but I really do enjoy spending time with them. So yeah.
There we go. On the nicer list, of course, CJ, what do we got? Over to you.
I have to stay with everyone else. I'd put myself on the nice list this year. And I think for Christmas, on the same page, I'm really excited to be back with family for a little bit and spend some time with my family in Sacramento. But I did, on a funny note, for the first time, I've always got this my whole life, but for the first time, I actually put tall socks on my Christmas. It's really out there asking for a couple pairs of fun socks for work. So that's me.
There we go. Fun socks. Andy, over to you. What do you want for? What are you on the naughty or nice? And
Well, I wear all black, and I'm wearing a shirt with a Jolly Roger on it, so I don't know. Maybe I'm on the naughty list. But no, I think I'm probably on the nice list. I still have friends and family that love me, and I'm grateful that I've had work most of the year, and I wish all I want for Christmas is peace and prosperity for all of my friends and loved ones who are going through a difficult time. That's it. That's the show.
Wait, who's left?
One more.
yeah, I was gonna say, Andy, you kind of have to ask me the question.
I know. I get about
Kind of weird.
Okay, Patrick, are you on the naughty or nice list? And what do you want for Festivus?
Yeah, I do celebrate. I actually have a Festivus poll set up, as well as the Christmas tree. I'm definitely on the naughty list. We're shaking things up here at TETV, folks. We're trailblazing. We're changing the industry here. So, definitely on the naughty list and loving every moment of it. What I will say is for Christmas, I'm like the worst at presents at this point. I just want to. I would love the gift of presents, and I would love for everyone to be safe and to COVID-19 to be limited in the transfer of that. That's very sincere. I want everyone to be as safe as possible. And like I close my eyes and I envision the end of 2021 when we're hopefully out of all this and we're back to a different time. That's definitely what I'm hoping for, and that I can get that for Christmas. The vaccines, I want vaccines for everybody. That's what I'll say with that. So happy holidays, everybody. Happy Santa Day. And we really appreciate our guests, Jill, Gary, and Chris, for coming on. And of course, Rachel, a producer of the show, and CJ, new producer on the show. With that, we'll say goodbye to everybody. And thank you all for coming out and joining us for the show.
Thanks again, you guys. It was really awesome. Really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For having us.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye, everybody.
So.